Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Engaged Parish Podcast. Today, we're excited to bring on Chase Crouse from Hypuro Fit. We're going to talk about all things fitness, why this matters for Catholics, how parishes can get involved. We also might even get into nutrition during the conversation today. So I'm very excited to bring Chase on. Chase is a husband and father of three. He lives in Austin, Texas. He is the founder and CEO of Hypuro Fit, the world's first Catholic-based personal training and nutrition coaching company. With a master's in biblical theology and a deep love of Pope John Paul II's theology of the body, Chase's mission is to invite all Catholics to view exercise and health as a means to grow in self-mastery for the sake of self-gift. Without any further ado, welcome, Chase.
Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being on. Chase, as we kick off our conversation, could you tell us about your own personal fitness journey and how did that end up intersecting with your Catholic faith?
Yeah. So, growing up in Texas, a lot of Texan boys, you just kind of get thrown into sports. My dad was a big sports guy. And so, always kind of played, football, baseball, tennis, volleyball, like kind of a little bit of everything, basketball. And throughout high school, I grew and I was fast, but not that fast, and tall, but not that tall. And anyway, hand-eye coordination was my sport. So I played tennis and beach volleyball. But it wasn't really until after my reversion, after my first year of college, that, I just had my reversion. I went to confession for the first time in years, and I started going to mass, and I was like, sweet, I'm good to go now. Like, I'm never going to be tempted again. Well, sure enough, a couple weeks after my reversion, I was like, wait, I'm not perfect. And, I was 19, didn't know anything. And a couple of friends of mine, at the time, they randomly called me because they knew that my dad had this old Beachbody like Insanity DVDs, like you plug them in the DVD player and you watch TV and you work out in your living room kind of thing. And so they called me and were like, hey, do you still have those? And I'm like, yeah, why? Like, we want to do it. Do you want to go like to daily mass in the morning and then work out afterwards? And I said, yeah, sure, I guess. Like, why not? I had nothing else to do. It was the summer. And so we started doing that. And those workouts were really, really hard. They're built to be like insane. And as a trainer now, I'm like, oh, it's just not a good workout structure, but it's fine. But I remember that's the first time I really connected the dots of, if I can mentally force my body to do this thing it doesn't want to do, maybe that'll help me mentally stop my body from doing the thing it does want to do in moments of temptation and temptations of any kind. Right. So that was kind of the first seeds that were planted. I don't know if I could articulate it quite as well when I was 19 years old, but and then from there, it's kind of, off to the races. I went to school. I did some mission work and eventually, got into personal training at first kind of as a side gig. When I was working, I used to work for the Archdiocese in New York, and anybody who works for the church, if you're watching this, you didn't go into it for the money. And we lived in New York City, and it was really expensive. So I got into it. It's kind of a side gig, and we got pregnant with our first, and I didn't want my wife to have to like rush back off to work if she didn't want to. Discovered that, I was good at it. I really liked it. And then, it's kind of dominoes, fell from there with so far as like doing it professionally, I guess.
And so that must have been the start of Hypuro Fit, which you have today. Could you tell us about what you sort of told us what triggered you to start this, but could you talk about the business growth and how you got Hypuro Fit to where it is today? Also, what's up with the name? What does Hypuro mean?
We'll start with the name. That's a shorter answer. So yeah, I did my master's, like you said in the intro, in biblical theology. So I had to do Greek and Hebrew and things like that. And so whenever I was starting the company, I was like, okay, I want something that's like kind of sounds cool, kind of like Nike, but not like too on the nose. And so I literally went to my Greek lexicon, like my Greek dictionary, and started like looking up words. And so anyway, Hypuro is actually a totally made up Greek word. It comes from two different Greek words that we smashed together. So hupomeno, which means I endure, and then pyro, fire. So smashing together Hypuro, I endure the fire. So one of our Bible quotes, Bible verses that we have as our inspiration is twofold. One is Sirach 2, as gold is tested in fire, so man is tested in the crucible of humiliation. And then the second one is from First Peter, Second Peter. Oh no. Anyway, one of the Peters talking about man being tested as gold in the fire, right? So and it's also kind of punny with like feel the burn with workouts. So we kind of renamed it like back in 2019, and it stuck. But but yes, I mean, essentially the thing that got me to want to start up Hypuro Fit was really when I was starting in personal training. I was doing it in a big box gym. It was a 24-hour fitness, and it's a secular workout environment, right? And I knew that going in, wasn't ignorant of that fact, but I quickly realized that I didn't like it. I didn't like working in a secular environment. One, I wasn't allowed to talk about Jesus, and as somebody who had been doing ministry for like 10 years, I wasn't used to not being able to talk about Jesus. And that really bugged me. But also, people would come to me and say, I would ask, well, why do you want to work with a trainer? Why do you want to get healthy and all these things? And a lot of the times it was like, oh, I want to look sexy, or I want a six pack. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, I could care less if somebody else thinks you look sexy. I don't care. I just don't. And so it forced me for the first time to really do an examination of consciousness, why I care so much about this, about exercise, nutrition, all these things. And the thing I didn't want it to do was I didn't want to do it just because my inner Americana told me I needed to do it. Right. I wanted it to be is there something in my faith that really makes sense of this? And so I went back to JP2's Theology of the Body, who I'd studied kind of formally my undergrad and my master's. And so sure enough, audience 15, paragraph 2, he talks about this idea of this hermeneutic of gifts, or this lens of gift. And he quotes Gaudium et Spes, man finds himself through a sincere gift of self. And I knew that, I'd studied it. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Gravy. Cool. But then what JP2 adds, and this is what my light bulb moment was, and I'll paraphrase it, but he says, self-donation or self-gift is impossible without self-mastery, right? So you can't give what you don't have. And so that's kind of what started my thought process of if the goal of my life is to be like Jesus Christ in all things, which includes his total and perfect gift of the Father on the cross. Well, I'm not Jesus. I'm not God. I don't have total self-possession. So by conquering myself, like St. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 9, as a runner, trains for the race, I have to conquer myself in order to fully give of myself to my spouse, to my children, to my job. Because if there's an area of my life that I don't have self-mastery over, then that's an area of my life I'm unable to give of myself fully in. And so at the time I was talking to a good buddy of mine about all this, and he's like, man, I'm sure there's some Catholic fitness company that, you could work for. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. This is 2019. And, went to Google and there was nothing, right? There was nothing really out there. So I was like, all right, well, if it doesn't exist, let's make it a thing. Because and now, proof's in the pudding, where so many of the people, basically everybody in our platform and our app and our one-on-one clients, they work with us primarily because they know that we have the same worldview. We're on the same team. We're on the same goal. We're all just trying to be saints, right? We're all trying to die to ourselves in order to give of ourselves. So that's when Hypuro Fit was born.
Yeah, and you mentioned 2019, which obviously became a pivotal year for a lot of reasons. And now you're not a gym, right? The coaching and you have an app. It's all online. Yeah. Is that originally how you started before COVID even hit?
Yeah, actually, wow. That was something that we really had to navigate, how we wanted to deliver this. And really, my heart with starting Hypuro Fit was I wanted to truly help the church. I wanted to help as many people as possible. I was a youth minister for a long time. I worked in the diocese for a long time. And I worked with a lot of priests, a lot of people in the church who simply couldn't afford in-person training. Because at 24-Hour Fitness, we would charge $75 to $100 for one workout. Well, you need to work out on average 3 days a week. And most people, especially people that work in the church, don't have $1,200 a month to give to a personal trainer. And that's not even nutrition coaching or lifestyle coaching or accountability. That's just the workouts, right? And so the online coaching space was kind of coming up at that point. It was becoming more and more popular. And so, we knew we wanted to coach online. We wanted an app, and we wanted to help people all around the world. So we've had clients in Australia, Ireland, Dubai, Canada, America, obviously. And it's empowered us to keep our pricing reasonable. So that way, we work with about a third of our clients are actually priests and religious, which is cool. Another third are people who actually work in parishes, and then another third are just normal lay Catholics kind of thing. So we've found a model that really works well, so we can truly build up the church and make a healthy church. So that way, people on the front lines can keep doing what they're doing, right? So that's kind of the idea there.
Yeah, that absolutely, and that actually leads into the next question I have for you, which is, priests and lay leaders are incredibly busy. how would you answer this question? Why should they prioritize fitness in their vocation when it seems like they can't even find 5 minutes to breathe? Why? What, how much emphasis should they put on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'll bring it back to this self-mastery for self-gift thing, right? You can get away with not taking care of yourself in your 20s, in your 30s, but as you get older, upper 30s, 40s, 50s, something's going to give, right? And I remember one time I was taking my youth group to a summer camp, and there was this other youth director there, and God bless her, she was in her 40s, and she was just incredibly out of shape. She was very overweight. And so while we're all playing games and activities, I'm diving in there with the kids, getting muddy, getting crazy. She was kind of just sitting on the sidelines, like physically incapable of playing the game we were playing, right? And you've been to summer camps, you're walking all over the place or whatever, and she was always like 10 or 15 minutes behind. And so that's an example of a youth minister, right? That's a different example. But even priests, right? I work with priests who are in their 40s and 50s. They can't genuflect anymore, right? They're physically so low energy that they want to give. Their hearts get like, they want to serve. They want to love on the people that God's put in their life, but they're just exhausted, right? And so the one thing I try to encourage people in ministry is that it's almost the same with your personal prayer life, right? You prioritize personal prayer because it's your relationship with God, and you need that to give, right? You have to be filled with the Spirit in order to give. We would be reservoirs of grace. Like there's a book called Soul of the Apostolate, really good, talks about this. But physically, it's the same idea, right? You have to conquer yourself. You have to spend time in what appears to be selfishness or uselessness, right? Prayer from externally looks useless. Prayer looks pointless. You're just sitting there, right? But and people in the church know it's the most necessary thing, right? So while I will never say that working out in a gym is as necessary as prayer, like, because once again, you can't say that because most saints never went to a gym, right? Like most saints in the history of the church never went to the gym. But the one thing I want to encourage people to view it as is modern day ascetical practice, right? It's modern day asceticism. So we partnered with Exodus 90 a few years back. And because it was a really great relationship, we kind of say the same thing in different ways, because it's once again, conquering yourself, dying to yourself. So that way you can give, you can serve, you can do what you want to do. You don't run out of energy. You don't burn out, right? So that's the priority there. And is it easy? No, like, of course it's not. And it's going to mean you're going to have to say no to something else, which, yeah, that happens. Maybe that's a little bit of sleep. Maybe it's Netflix. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's people, right? A lot of the times people in ministry are very social butterflies. And so sometimes I'm working with them. I'm like, yeah, you got to say no to the late night party sometimes, because you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it is. Right. So, anyway, that's how I typically frame it.
I want to come back to this topic, but you mentioned the partnership with Exodus 90 and having done Exodus and doing Exodus myself, I've seen your content in there. And so it's still up and available on the app. Could you talk about that partnership and, for men that are doing Exodus, what can they expect if they find that little tab that you have of the content that you put together for them?
Yeah, so that was cool. So it was a guy named Nathaniel that was working there at the time. We got connected. And so essentially one of the disciplines of Exodus is working out 3 days a week, right? Like you have to do something physical 3 days a week. And so before our partnership, it was kind of just like just do something, right? But nothing really practical or tangible was there. And so they reached out to us to create both at home and then gym programs that are meant to be scalable. So somebody who's never worked out before or somebody who has worked out a bunch, either person can jump in. And there's ways to kind of like scale it in the app that kind of explains that. And so just that you're not like playing guesswork. Because I think a lot of times people, whenever they've never worked out before or they haven't worked out since high school or maybe in the army, what they view as exercise means like, I need to be a puddle of sweat on the floor. I need to be like on the brink of like getting sick, like in order for it to be a quote unquote good workout. And that's just not the case, right? That's not it. So as adults, we rather want to find like, what's the minimal effective dose to get what we need to do and get it done? Because that's typically the thing that's going to be sustainable. If you like the really intense stuff and if you want to do that seasonally or every once in a while, that's fine if you can handle it. But for most people, we just don't need that, right? I don't need to be like like laying on the floor after a workout because I can't move. So with the Exodus 90 partnership, that's really how we designed that workout to be something that's going to be sustainable, really, really good, help you build muscle and lose fat, but not something that's going to instantly like take you out and make you so sore you can't move kind of thing. So.
And I want to stay on this topic for a second because, you alluded to this earlier, but when we think of fitness in our modern culture, we think of, maxing out on the reps and, how many push-ups can you do? How many squats can you get in? And you also mentioned this earlier. Most saints over history weren't in the gym every day because the culture back then was obviously a lot more, it's much different than today. We have our modern conveniences, cars, things like that. So when you talk about fitness, it doesn't necessarily have to be this cultural image of trying to max out your reps, get jacked type of thing. It could just mean getting out and going for a half an hour walk and making that part of your routine. So could you talk about the vision of fitness that Hypuro Fit has?
Yeah. To build a healthy church, right? I want every single person who encounters our stuff, whether it's our app, one-on-one coaching, whatever, we're here to help you live out your vocation to the best of your ability, right? That does not mean you're going to look like a bodybuilder, right? I don't train bodybuilders. I don't even train powerlifters. Like some people are into that kind of thing. That's great. Awesome. There's other great coaches that do that kind of thing, like St. Michael's Barbell. But my desire for people is to make them objectively healthy, which means a healthy body fat percentage, having muscle mass, right? And you looking a certain way, maybe looking quote unquote better, finding yourself more attractive, your partner finding you more attractive. I see that more as a fruit of your labor, not as the end goal in and of itself, right? Because once again, the end goal is to be like Jesus Christ, right? The end goal is to be conformed to his image and likeness in all things. And so we use exercise as a way to conquer ourselves, because if sloth is truly a deadly sin, and if it's something that somebody struggles with, this can be not the only way, but a tool to conquer that, right? And to defeat that. If sleeping in is a struggle, right? Or if your gluttony is another deadly sin, right? If that's something you struggle with, these are all tools that we can cooperate with grace to be conformed to the image and likeness of Jesus Christ, right? So you getting stronger, you losing body fat, you getting faster, your endurance increasing, your cardiovascular health increasing. Awesome. These are all really good things. They are fruits of what we do, but the end goal is to be like Jesus Christ. Because one day, God willing, you're going to be in your 70s, 80s, 90s. You're not going to look ripped. You're not going to be jacked. Your spouse hopefully finds you attractive, right? But even priests, a priest client told me one time, I was like, why do you want to do this? And he's like, well, Chase, we already have a vocational crisis. Me going down because I can't take care of myself doesn't help the church, right? And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have said it like that, but you're a priest, so I guess you're allowed to say it like that. This is the orientation, right? All these other benefits, awesome, great, they're fruits, and sometimes they're good. Like it's good to have objective things we can track, like weight loss, muscle growth, things like that, because they help motivate us. Kind of, we're doing the right thing. But ultimately, the end goal is self-mastery for self-gift, to be like Jesus Christ, right? To become saints. So that's really how we want to position all this.
Let's get into what Hypuro Fit has available for parishes. I mean, I'll just say it right now. You're working with eCatholic. We've signed up with Hypuro Fit to make the app and a challenge for the Lent season available to all employees here at eCatholic. We're really excited about that. You do have offerings for parishes, Catholic organizations that are interested in bringing this to their communities. Could you talk about those? And for those that are viewing us online and not just listening, we have your website up as well, which we can flash on the screen. But could you talk through what those opportunities look like?
Yeah. So if you go to the Catholic Business Partnerships thing there, you can click on that. And then it's just a simple intake form with an email name and a note. But so basically with this kind of came about once again with my desire to help the church, help people in the church. Because even though our rates and our prices are really, really affordable, we have one-on-one offerings to work with people individually. We also have a subscription program through the apps for $10 a month. But there's some people that work in a church that they just can't do it, right? And maybe it's a priest, religious, lay person. So the partnerships are a few things. It could be as simple as like what you guys are doing with eCatholic. eCatholic has basically paid for all of the staff to have access to our subscription programs for a year. And we set up like challenges and stuff for like Lent and Pentecost and, Advent, where we can collect points and things like that. And then, but so that's an option we do with parishes, where the parish will sponsor the staff to get on subscriptions. We also do things like workshops, nutrition workshops, health workshops. We do missions. We do just normal talks at like groups, whether it's Zoom or in person. And then we also do, kind of group rate one-on-one or cohort coaching as well. Yes, this is our one-on-one coaching page. And if you hit the subscription programs button there, hit on that, you can kind of get a glimpse. But if you scroll down, you can see some of the different subscription programs that we have. So we have, a lot of different programs for people that want to work out at home, those over 60, gym programs. We have a postpartum program. The middle one there is kind of my favorite. This is one of my first. I called it Theology Nerd to Hunky Youth Minister. And so Breaking the Chains program, that was inspired by our Exodus 90 partnership. And so no matter where you're at, we have something for you. And so, with the parish partnership, sometimes we'll do a workshop or an event. And then, the parish will, sponsor the staff to have access to the app for a year. And sometimes it's, if the parish doesn't do it, one of the things we also want to honor people that have given of themselves and work for the church. And so we'll even give like individual discounts in the hopes that like, if they like it, they'll like tell their, dad's group about it or their mom's group about it or whatever, kind of help us be a parish champion if they like it, right? If they don't like it, then okay, no harm, no foul. But we think it's great. But the parish partnerships are cool because as affordable as we are, I just refuse to have money be a reason that we can't help people, right? So that's actually why we actually give free access to our app to all priests and religious. And it's like, I can say it openly. It's not like a cloak and dagger thing. It's not like it's a free for a month and then you pay. It's like, no, they're a priest or religious. If they've given their life for the church, like I will give you free access to this app if that's the thing that's going to take to help you be healthy, right? We can't do that with one-on-one coaching, unfortunately. Wish we could, but at least with our app, which is still great, we give free access to priests and religious. So we're this weird combination of like business and ministry. So
that is awesome. And thank you for opening that up for the church, and thank you for, allowing priests and religious to be able to access it free of charge. I also love how you really do have something for everyone, depending on your budget, depending on your goals. You can go just from that app access all the way up to opening this up to your entire parish staff or diocesan staff, plus the one-on-one coaching. There's just so much you guys offer. So thank you for what you do for the church through Hypuro Fit. I want to go back to working out because I know a lot of the times it can be tough. You haven't been taking care of yourself for years. You finally find yourself in, your 30s or 40s and can't quite do the same type of thing that you could do in your 20s. When people have that realization and they want to make fitness a priority in their lives, what are some of the initial mistakes that you see people make?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to one earlier, and it's thinking that they need to go crazy or like need to do what they did in high school or in the army or whatever, which typically leads to one, either injury or just excessive soreness. Like you can't sit down on the toilet for like 2 or 3 days afterwards kind of thing, right? So that's a big one, is they think that the way that a football player works out is the way that you should be working out as an adult, right? And middle-aged adult. So a lot of people, and in all fairness, it's all they know, right? They just like, I did this thing in high school and it kind of worked, so let me try it again, right? So that's a big one, is just going too hard out the gate. I tell new clients all the time, when I program their first month, it's like, hey, if you finish one of my workouts and you think to yourself, that wasn't that bad, I could have done more. Awesome. Great. That's exactly where I wanted that to be. Because you want to just, your body wants to get minimal effective dose, right? We want just outside of your comfort zone, just outside of what your body's capable of or used to. So that way that will elicit growth and muscle growth and a response. So that's a big one. Another big one is thinking that they have to work out every single day and you have to work out for an hour, because they think like, I can't have an hour every single day. We have studies, we have research and showing that, 3 days a week is great, right? Especially when it comes to resistance training. 3-day week is awesome. And if that's all you got, that's great. That's so good. And you can do that for the rest of your life and be super healthy. Another one is this idea that like you have to run to be healthy. That's actually not true. Like you don't have to run, especially if you hate running. If you don't like something, then there's other ways to be healthy besides running. And probably the last one is the illusion that exertion equals results. So one of my problems, and if you're listening to this and if you do one of these things, I'm not like trying to be mean or call you out. One of my problems with like an Orange Theory or like an F45 type situation, they're good. It's better than nothing, right? If you go to that, keep doing it. If you love it, awesome, great. But a lot of times people that come from that background to me, one, I'll ask like, well, why are you coming to me if you were doing that and if it was working well? It's obviously something's missing, right? So a lot of these like group fitness class type things will give you the feeling of exertion. You'll be really tired afterwards, but then they don't actually help you build muscle. And part of that's because they're constantly doing different things. And building muscle is actually kind of boring. You have to do the same workout over and over again for like weeks on end, and every workout trying to match or beat what you did the week before. It's called progressive overload. And so a lot of times people confuse the feeling of exertion with an effective workout. And that's not really the case necessarily. So doing those things every once in a while is okay. Or if you want it to be your cardio for the week, awesome, great. But making sure you have some kind of resistance training in there as well. That's consistent, that's routine, that you can log, that you can track, that you can progress is really, really important for consistent results. So yeah, probably off the top of my head, those would be the few things that I see a lot.
Sure. And if anyone's interested and wants to get started with the app has ways to sort of set that program for yourself and allow you to track your metrics over time. So the app in and of itself, even if that's just a starting point, becomes a really good place to kind of build and have yourself be accountable to actually getting the workout in and logging in and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's good to hear too, you know, sometimes you said just start with something, but sometimes that could just mean, okay, I'm just going to go on my daily jog, which again is good. You're getting some cardio in, but you mentioned the importance of adding muscle or sustaining some level of muscle on your body structure as well. So I'm glad you pointed that out because I feel like that can be, it's easy to walk. It's a little bit harder to go lift some weights or do some push-ups. So being sure that you're integrating both those components sounds like it's important.
Yeah, one analogy I love and I steal from this woman named Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She's a book called Forever Strong. Really good book. But she gives the analogy of think of your muscle like a suitcase, right? In this suitcase, we store amino acids from proteins, carbs, and fats. Some other stuff in there too, water, things like that. But anyway, the muscle is like a suitcase. And so when you eat, you stuff the suitcase. But what happens is if you try to stuff too many clothes in a suitcase, clothes start sticking out. And what happens is when we fuel ourselves too much, the stuff that sticks out is body fat, right? So one of the things we can do, the bigger you make your suitcase, the more you can actually eat and actually put it to use, right? So one of the best things about having muscle mass isn't to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that, but rather it's making you more metabolically healthy. You can eat more food than you were before, and it gives you more grace on those days. Like if you're at a parish event and you know there's going to be a potluck or like it's another, you know, you're a youth minister, it's the 50th pizza party of the year or like whatever the case may be. If you have muscle mass, you don't have to go into those situations being like, oh no, like, I can't eat these things. Like, no, you say, all right, this is an ideal, definitely the exception, not the rule. I can have a pizza and move on with my life. It's all good, right? Like when I go to parties a lot, all my friends, like know I'm a trainer and, you know, professionally, all these things. And they see me like eating a piece of like birthday cake or like pizza. And they're like, hey, Chase, is like, you're a trainer. And I'm like, no, I'm a trainer, so I actually know I can eat this and be totally fine. Like, it's okay, you know? And I'm not going to quote unquote burn it off later. Like, no, like it's okay. I can have this as an exception to my general rule of life with nutrition. All good. No harm, no foul. It's all good, right? So, yeah.
Let's talk about nutrition for a second because I think it goes hand in hand with fitness. First of all, does Hypuro Fit have an element of nutrition help, training, helping? Is that part of the program that you guys offer?
Yeah. So with subscription clients, they have access to our macro calculator, like a food log, think like MyFitnessPal, but not. And we have tons of education content on the app where we teach about nutrition. And then obviously with one-on-one clients, all of our coaches are also certified nutrition coaches. Because if we just did workout stuff, it'd be good, better than nothing. But if you're not also tackling nutrition and lifestyle things, your progress is going to be stalled out, right? So we offer both. It's really, really important. Now that being said, we're not prescriptive with like everyone has to eat, carnivore, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, anything like that. What our goal is with all of our clients is say, okay, what are you doing right now, and how do we optimize that, right? You have a baseline, you're alive, you're eating food. Now, how do we optimize that so that it's something that's sustainable, that's mostly minimally processed whole foods, high protein, all these things, but something that's not going to make you mad. Because if it makes you mad, and if you don't like it, you're not going to do it, right? You might do it for a week, you might do it for a couple months, but eventually you're not going to do it, right? So I tell my clients all the time, it's like, hey, if you don't like broccoli, don't eat broccoli. Like, all good. Like, there's other green things you can eat, right? So nutrition is really, really important. And when it comes to body compositional change, whether it's muscle growth or fat loss, 70% of the battle is nutrition, right? 70%. And if your nutrition's on that, because you can't outwork a bad form, you just can't. So it's really important.
I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but
let's do it. I love rabbits.
All right, let's do it then. It always seems like there's a new diet kind of coming out in the wider culture. And right now it seems like, you hear a lot of paleo, carnivore. Do you have any thoughts on those diets? And are there any sort of, high level diet plans, fads, if you want to even call them that you think are actually worth looking into?
So one of the approaches that we'll take with nutrition is that typically I will not say any one thing is bad for everybody, right? It's so individual specific. So for example, there's an extreme version of carnivore called the Lion Diet. Jordan Peterson's daughter, her name is McKenna, she advocates this. But they say on their website, hey, this is designed for people with very serious autoimmune problems, and we're trying to resolve those problems. And even what they'll say is do the Lion Diet, which means they can eat like steak, bison, and lamb. I think I could be wrong, but it's like very few things, and the only thing on it is salt. Like that's it. It's meat and salt. Like, that's all they eat. And there's a lot of people that a lot of their autoimmune things have been helped by this, right? But what they say is treat it as a elimination diet. So go all the way down to just these bare things, because the things everybody needs is protein and fats, right? So you have to eat proteins and fats to survive. And then do it for a month or two, right? Or however long. And then slowly add like one thing back in at a time, right? And then do that, add one thing for like a week or two, see how your body responds, see if you have any flare-ups, and then awesome, that you can keep that in now. Then add the next one thing. So I think that could be really prudent, especially if somebody does have serious health issues. And even like when it comes to keto was originally developed to help those with cancer, right? It was designed to try to starve out cancer cells. And there's been studies on this showing that people that have cancer, that are fighting cancer, when they go on keto, it may improve health outcomes, right? And so I'll never say definitively that for sure it does, but it may, right? There's some interesting studies on this. The caveat I'll place on all these kind of fad diets is the fact that just because they work for some people doesn't mean they have to work for everyone, right? Same thing with like eating gluten-free. If you're celiac, or if you have a negative reaction to gluten, don't eat gluten. Like, not a good idea. But if you can eat gluten and you don't have any bloating, you don't have any digestive issues, you don't have any like super fatigue or anything like that, then you're probably fine. You can have it. And so with any of these approaches, I say, if you're going to try one, my hope is that you would try it and approach it kind of like an elimination diet, right? Where you do go to an extreme, right? And then slowly reintroduce foods one at a time to see how your body reacts. The one thing that we don't want to say is that the weight loss is caused because this diet is some magic pill, right? Weight loss is caused, a lot of it, for carnivore, for example, is because you're cutting out an entire food group and all junk and processed foods, which means normally you're eating fewer calories than you're burning, which is resulting in weight loss, right? Yes, hormones are a factor. There's a lot of other factor when it comes to, I don't want to be overly simplistic with calories in versus calories out. But at the end of the day, a lot of the times they say, oh, I lost 15 pounds in a week. Well, if you cut out carbs, carbohydrate has the word hydrate, right? Water's in it. So half, 2/3 of that 15 pounds is probably water. It's just because you stopped eating carbs, right? So we don't want to confuse the fact that the weight loss or the health benefits are purely because this diet is some magic solution, right? Same with like intermittent fasting. That was huge for a while. Still kind of big. But there is no, like, we know this now, there's studies that come out. There's no metabolic window. That's not a thing. You're losing weight typically because you've restricted your eating window, which means you're eating fewer calories than you're burning, and you're probably eating less garbage, right? On average. So anyway, so I'll never say any one particular fad diet is bad or nobody should ever do it. Sometimes there are cases, especially with extreme health issues, that can be really beneficial. And sometimes people kind of just need a black and white thing to kind of kickstart the journey, right? But that being said, when we work with people, we'll never start them on any kind of one of these diets, right? We're not going to trying to coach them to a diet. The best diet, if you want to call it that I really like to point people to is there's a book called Nutrivore by Dr. Sarah Ballantyne. It's great. It's just about eating a wide variety of food, spending most of your time eating whole foods like meats, fruits, veggies, dairies, whole grains, all these things. Knowing that occasionally you can have a slice of pizza. It's not going to be the end of the world. Don't do that all the time, but occasionally is fine. And she calls it Nutrivore, but it's like, that's just the name of the book. So it's not like a diet that we prescribe or something like that.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. We're each individual, and I think there seems to be this cultural shift of us realizing that as well. People react differently to different things. I think we're also becoming more attuned and keen to some of what's going into our food. And I think I also hear you saying a big part of it is just cutting out things that are processed that we just know objectively are not good for us. Being okay with having them once in a while, but cutting those out if it's your main source of nutrition is probably a very good starting point.
Yeah. And even when it comes to like, let's poke the bear, let's talk seed oils, right? And so RFK's in power now, seed oils. No, but a lot of the times the conflation with seed oils being bad is because most of the time you're eating seed oils at like a fast food restaurant, right? And yeah, we know that when you cool and heat any kind of oil, no good. It's going to be bad, right? And fast food, cooling and heating, not great, right? But there's studies out there showing that like, seed oils versus like saturated fats and like and olive oils and avocados, they did the studies. And what they found was that there was a net neutral benefit, both positive or negative, towards when somebody cooks with seed oils, right? When it's actually like done at their home and not going to like a restaurant or something like that, or a fast food restaurant, right? So the thing that I want to really caution people against is like, don't treat nutrition like a religion, right? We don't worship food. We don't even worship our bodies, right? We worship God, right? And so anytime you see somebody getting really, really heated about this, they become a food evangelist, always take a step back and be like, why do you care so much about this, right? Maybe it is they genuinely want your best and your good, right? And they've personally experienced this one thing and they want to share that testimony with you, right? But a lot of people online, a lot of times they want to sell you something, right? They want to sell you their version of the thing, or other things. So we don't want to, put our most worth, like Bishop Barron will say, our worship, right, in food. We want to hang out mostly in minimally processed whole foods. Occasionally, have a piece of cheesecake, not gonna be the end of the world. But just make that the exception and not the rule, right?
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Another topic I want to cover with you, and I feel like it's kind of an undercurrent of everything we've been talking about, but how can we make our fitness routines, our working out, how can we turn that into a prayer? I mean, obviously through Hypuro Fit, you've sort of infused fitness with a Catholic element, with elements of theology of the body really being the undertow. But talk about practical ways we can pray as we work out or make workout into a prayer.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll kind of joke with people is, we're authentically Catholic, but technically excellent, meaning that I'm not going to like typically give somebody like a rosary workout. Even though it's better than no workout, it's just like from a technical perspective, it's not as efficient. But that being said, one of the things I tell people all the time is like, hey, you should be making a daily offering every morning. Like one of the first things you do so we have a free PDF online. It's called the Heroes Hour. And in that, St. Jose Maria Escriva talks about like the first minute of your day, drop to your knees, spend the first minute of your day just in a state of praise and offering your day to God, right? And just that act alone, like St. Paul says, pray always, pray without ceasing. And he doesn't mean walk around praying Hail Marys, every second of every day. But if we can make our life, like I think he says in Ephesians, make your life psalms and spiritual hymns, right? And so it's and another analogy he'll use is like incense, right? Sweet aroma of your life. So it's one of those things where if you make that daily offering, then everything in your day, good, bad, or ugly, is being offered to God. One, hopefully that keeps you accountable, keeps you in check a little bit, but also that you've already offered this workout up to God. But then you can make it intentional, right? And saying like, for me, got married with 3 kids, got a 4th on the way. Like I can offer up the workout for my pregnant wife, for my kids, or this certain situation, or for a client. I offer workouts for clients sometimes if they're going through something. So truly, that's Catholics. I love the Catholic faith. It's like it's deification, it's cruciformity, it's being more like Jesus in all things, which means the things we do have merit. They're meritorious, right? So doesn't mean every single rep I'm thinking my wife, my kids, and sometimes maybe, but my brain's just not that good, so I can't do that all the time. But sometimes it's just right before the workout starts, going in with a simple prayer. Sometimes it's you're halfway through the workout and you're just like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do anymore. And then saying like, Lord, give me strength, help me do this for X, Y, and Z reasons, kind of thing. But ultimately, like I said, it comes down to, at least in my opinion, like we're doing this for our vocation, which means we're doing it for God, right? So I think, if you're spending the first fruits of your day, offering those up to God, and then even being more intentional with, right before the activity, offering up for a specific person or thing or situation. I think it was St. Maximilian Kolbe. Every hour he would stop and he would do a spiritual communion and then offer it up for like somebody or something, right? I'm not that good. I wish, like, Lord help me. But we have witnesses of the saints who've done this before, right? So we can lean on.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a guest on recently who kind of posed the question of what makes a Catholic car. He had made films in the past, so the question was sort of like, what makes a good Catholic film? He's like, with a Catholic car, does it have a baptismal font in it?
Right.
The guy have a huge cross on the hood. He's like, no, a Catholic car is one that is safe, is built to to function properly. It's one that is reliable. So anyways, it's sort of the same thing with fitness as well. It doesn't mean you have to be, belting out Hail Marys and doing a rosary. That could be good too, but it seems like a good fitness program is one where we're not overly focused on ourselves. And as you always say, it's making the workout and you bettering yourself from a fitness perspective into a self-gift for others.
Right.
And another part of this too is just to instill discipline. I mean, I know that's why Exodus 90 has such a strong lean into working out as part of the program. I think it's three times a week or something like that is what is in there. The aesthetic practice and just being able to, with God's grace, resist our own convenience and comfort can also help us out there in the spiritual war that's raging around us all the time to resist sin a little bit more. So I'm sure you've seen that too with your clients, where as they work through this program with the right mindset, they probably are also growing in many other areas of their lives.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot of spiritual doctors of the church talk about this, but the virtues are all connected, right? Because it's all part of the same tree, if you will, right? And so as one area grows stronger, more virtuous, other things grow with it. Doesn't mean other things grow as much or the same way or whatever, but and really everything we do falls into the virtue of temperance, really, right? Fortitude, kind of, if you you have to do something, you don't want to do it, right? And you do it anyway. But really it's temperance. It's the ability to have your body do the thing your mind and your will is calling it to do, right? And so, but in temperance, one of the 4 cardinal virtues, you can't detach those from the other cardinal virtues because it's necessary. And so it's everything's connected. And so even when a silly example being, if you're really struggling to, kind of stand your ground, if you will, in a work situation or in a relationship or something like that, once again, by dying to yourself, by mentally forcing your body to do things it doesn't want to do, you can mentally, stop your body from, shying away or doing something else. Or once again, it's growing in temperance, it's growing in fortitude, it's growing in self-mastery. So that way, when a situation is presented to you that's calling for your courage, it's calling for your action. Well, if you spend, dedicated time throughout the week doing the thing you don't want to do, it's training for those moments. Or St. John of the Cross talks about active purgation versus passive purgation, right? Active purgation is the things that you choose, things like what we're doing right now with Lent, right? You're choosing the things that are hard. You're fasting from something. Your will is involved, right? You're choosing the thing you're giving up. You're sleeping on the floor. You're bread and water fasting. You're working out or whatever. And then the passive purgation are the things that God either allows or wills to purify you. And St. John of the Cross, a lot of spiritual theologians will always tell you the passive purgation is way harder than the active purgation, right? But we do the active purgation to train ourselves up so we're ready for those moments of passive purgation, right? So they're both needed on the spiritual journey. So anyway, that was a rabbit I chased a little bit, but
no, that was good. That was very well put. Thank you for that, Chase. For any, priests, lay people, parish staff, those who run ministries who are, maybe on the fence, maybe feeling called to reach out and start their own fitness journey, whether through Hypuro Fit or other means. What's some advice, and maybe also encourage them that they're not going to, if they start this journey, there's no judgment, and it's actually a very courageous step. What's your advice for that first step that they can take?
I think it's internal. And next time you go to personal prayer, do something called the why exercise, right? And like Mike, I've talked about this before. It's ask yourself, why? First question: why do I want to work out, right? Or be healthy or whatever? And actually write it down in notes and paper. Answer the question. Invite the Holy Spirit into this. And then once you've answered that, ask why to that question, right? Well, why did I answer that way? Write it down. Ask why to that, and really do that as many times. Keep asking why to your answers until you get to the core of the reason behind why you want to take these steps, right? And hopefully that's not coming from a place of fear or of judgment, right? Of shame. Sometimes those elements are in there, and sometimes God can allow those for our good. But really trying to get to the core of it, because the best results come when you're doing this because you genuinely love something or someone that you're doing this for. Especially if you don't like working out, you've never liked it, and you're having a hard time with, like, for my priest clients out there, I say about a third of my clients are priests. You have to have a deep love for your church and your community. I have a priest client right now who's really struggling, and God bless him. One of his biggest struggles is he has a really, really hard community. It's a dying parish. It's a dying community. And he's going through personal, dryness and hardship, and it's making everything else a lot harder. Right. And so do this why exercise first. Right. And then when you have your concrete why in mind, and part of that hopefully is self-mastery for self-gift, everything we've been said, hopefully that's been inspiring. Right. But once you have that, and you have your practical reasons in front of you, maybe that's your wife, maybe that's your husband, maybe it's your kids, maybe that's the youth in your youth program, maybe it's your parish that you preach to, whatever the case may be. When you have that thing you love that you do it for, doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that warm fuzzies of motivation are going to stick with you, but then you start, right? Because discipline is really the thing that's needed. Motivation is going to come and go, right? It's fickle. It's the same thing with personal prayer. Like, a lot of people here probably have a daily personal prayer life. You don't feel like praying every day. That you don't. Like, you don't. Nobody does. Right. But you do it, right? Hopefully. And maybe you have mistakes every once in a while, but you jump back on the horse. You jump back on the horse because you love God and you want to love him more. And the same things with exercise and nutrition. We're doing this from a place of love, right? So that would be, I think, the places I would encourage people to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a little bit more of a carrot, I can certainly say the days that I get my prayer in as I want to, even if it's dry, the days that I work out, even when I don't want to, those are good days. And the good Lord gives us consolations, the endorphins that go through your brain and your body when you actually get a good workout in, and it's counterintuitive in some ways, but you actually get more energy. These are things we all know, but they're important to remember too. There's a lot of good that comes from beginning this journey.
Yeah.
I do want to get back, just real quick, touch on where folks can find you, where they can learn more, where they can take the next step and see the programs you offer, whether, individual or for a parish community or something like that. But before I get there, what's next for Hypuro Fit? Is there anything exciting that's on the horizon?
Yeah, we're actually about to launch our brand new app this Easter. So the platform we currently use for our app is a program called Trainerize, and it's good. It's like lets us put our own branding and our own kind of spin on things, but there's a lot of things that we can't control. For example, like a really annoying thing that drives me totally bonkers is when you sign up. It wasn't like this when we first partnered with them, but then they did it like a year ago. It's age, weight, all these things, but then gender, it says male, female, and then a year ago they added other. And so there's 3 categories. So, hey, if you sign up, that's not us. I swear we're Catholic. Anyway, so that kind of initiated the fact that we're growing. We wanted our own like totally custom, like built for us app. So we're actually launching that this Easter. Because right now, how it's set up is you enter into like one specific program. Maybe it's home, maybe it's gym. With our new app, it's going to be a true subscription where you subscribe, you can jump around to different programs at will, at home, gym, whatever. You have access to me for any questions, which is cool. So even if you're not a one-on-one client, you can message me and I can answer basic questions. And it's actually me. It's not like a staff or an admin or a robot or something. We'll have like a news feed for like community engagement and posts, and people can comment and cheer each other on and things like that. So yeah, this Easter 2025, we're launching our new app. It's going to be awesome. I'm super stoked for it. And we're even with the new app, we're still letting priests and religious come on for free. So that's always gonna be a thing we're going to do. So yeah, that's next for us. And then, we'll see where else, God takes us, and we're doing some different talks and events and things like that too. But yeah, that new app's coming Easter 2025. So if you're already on the app, or if you jump on before then, we'll just like automatically transfer you over. But anyway, yeah, that's it. We're really excited for it.
That's awesome. Very exciting news. And thank you once again for, really making this a ministry and serving the church and allowing, those who give their lives to the church as a priest or religious. Thank you for giving them free access to the app. That's amazing. All right. Where can folks go to learn more, take the next step, see what's available? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so hypurofit.org. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. So hypurofit.org is website. Obviously, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, YouTube. I'm not great with uploading stuff on YouTube, but you can technically follow us on YouTube and we're there. Instagram is probably where we're the most kind of like active on. But yeah, it's our website, and you can see there's little buttons up top for Instagram and Facebook and stuff. If you want to talk about one-on-one coaching, there's a little connect to coach button. You just hit that connect with coach button, and then it takes you to our landing page. And here we're very transparent on our pricing, on our methodology. We have videos you can watch that explain things. The one thing we really hate about the secular fitness industry is they don't put pricing anywhere, and then they like cloak and dagger you with like a call and all these things. So yeah, and so the first call is totally free, so you can have a consult call, talk more about it, answer any questions, connect you with one of our coaches. We have a team of 11 coaches. Male and women, male and female. I almost said male and female. You created them, but men and women coaches. So at different ages. So whoever you're most comfortable working with. So yeah. So you can come in here, and there's a place that you can ask questions as well. So yeah.
Excellent. And you deal with, you said you have a range of coaches. So you help men, you help women, you help people really of all ages, all stages of life. So there's really something for everyone in there, and all budget levels as well. And for those that are listening, Hypuro is Hypuro, and the website is Hypuro, Hypuro, fit, FIT.org. So go there to learn more and to connect with Chase. Chase, before we wrap up, anything that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, no, my hope is that just wherever you're at, whether you're crushing it, working out every single day or multiple times a week, or you've never worked out before, read theology of the body, read the Bible, read the doctrine of the church, and just hopefully understanding that we do this not out of vanity. We don't do this out of fear or shame. We do this because we want to grow in self-mastery for self-gift. We want to be like Jesus Christ, right? We want to be saints. And so if that's something, we can help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful and, inspiring and motivating and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much for your time today, Chase. God bless.
God bless.